Hello and welcome to another edition of the Unicorn Chef. Tonight's Unicorn Chef is one of my favorite people, Patrick Miller. I first met Patrick a couple of years ago, and not only is he good looking and one of the buffest dudes in cybersecurity, you got to like do the gun show. But within minutes of meeting him, he seriously was welcoming and kind, and I have forever appreciated that. And of course, I love the fact that I am a member of the Beer ISAC, which Patrick and Chris co-founded. And that is just awesome. Tonight's charity is Black Girls Code. So please donate, help make the world better. And as always, hashtag what you're doing at home, Unicorn Chef, share what you're doing. We love to see what you're doing. And so Patrick, first question.
Yes.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking, this is Maestro Dobel tequila. Since I'm doing a Latin-inspired dish, I figured this would be a perfect combination with it. And in typical fashion for myself, I just drink it neat. That's it, just tequila and a glass. But it's actually really tasty. If you've never had the Diamante, excellent tequila.
Awesome. I have not. I want to try it. I'm drinking a local IPA from a brewery in Ashburn called Lost Rhino, and it is appropriately named Face Plant. So we will not be face planting. In fact, you will be leading us to deliciousness. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, tonight, Latin-inspired dish. I pulled it all together really from some time in Europe. Primarily some dishes I've had in Spain and all of the awesome and amazing food I've had throughout Latin America. So I just kind of put it together from all of those things. It's not really something that, I guess you would find on a menu. Maybe you probably will. So we're gonna start with a chicken. It's citrus oregano style. So it's kind of the standard Mediterranean feel. The esquite or roasted corn salsa as well, and then a squash, since it's that time of year where we're kind of transitioning from summer to fall to winter. I figured that combination is really good. And we're going to add a little poblano pepper in there just because I can't go without having a roasted poblano pepper at least once a week. But okay, so with that, let's kick it off with, I've got my corn cooling here so that I can slice it off the cob. I was lucky enough to find corn on the cob this late in the year after running around to 5 different stores today to try to find that. So
if you do not have corn on the cob, I made mine with frozen corn. I do not live in a southern climate like Patrick. And all I did was just caramelize it by keeping it in an iron skillet. Just let it sit, let it cook, let it get that caramelization, that nice brown, and you get kind of the same thing. You don't have as much of the smoky flavor as what you got. But anyway, substitute.
It's a fair substitute by all means. Even oddly enough, canned corn, if you strain it really well, it does a decent job.
Yeah, but canned corn has that flavor.
It does.
You know what I mean? Like canned food
when you're in a pinch,
has like that flavor.
It has that canned flavor.
Yeah, that's why I put the frozen stuff. The frozen stuff doesn't have the flavor.
Yeah, I've got some friends that actually do can it in glass jars. If you've got that and you're lucky enough to have that, then that would work. But yeah, frozen corn is going to be your best bet, just like Bryson said. As long as you get it, charred, get it a little caramelized. Yeah. So I've got some prepped in the fridge, but I'm going to walk you through the prep for the chicken for now. Just start with a little bit of olive oil on I use chicken thighs because I like the darker meat, and it has a lot more flavor than a breast, and it really complements this one well. Yeah.
Only mine has skin on it.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I went skinless. Either way, honestly, the skin is just as good. All right. So some pepper, a little olive oil in there. I do that just to kind of give it some time to, helps with the marinade, helps loosen things up. Salt and pepper, and then I use a Mexican oregano. There's all kinds of oreganos if you get into the spice world. It's Greeks and Italian and Mexican are your most common ones you can find. But for this dish, I really like the, it's a very bright flavor to it. Hard to describe that, but it's not as deep and rich.
So what happens if I do this with regular oregano from my spice rack?
That'll be just fine. Yeah, it'll come out just, I mean, you want the oregano flavor. You want that kind of a strong note from the oregano. I use a lot of oregano, frankly. I mean, I in the recipe, you'll see the, I guess, standard sizes, but for the portions, but I think I like a lot of oregano in there myself. And a little bit of smoked paprika, secret ingredient for every famous dish in the world. And lemon. Now for this, I absolutely love grating some of the rind in there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think smoked paprika is one of those things that not a lot of people know about. And you just sort of throw it in any dish that you're playing with. And
Yeah.
it's just this different level. And it takes no effort, right? Like I'm just opening a jar and pouring it in and bam.
Yeah. It is, many chefs will tell you it is the secret ingredient in almost every like famous dish. But I mean, when it comes to, you know, paprikas, I've got like 3 or 4 different kinds, you know, the smoked, the sweet, the Hungarian. So it's a fantastic spice.
Well, and you know a lot about food. You used to be a sous chef.
In a former life, I was a sous chef, yes, for an Italian place in Portland, Oregon. And just being, you know, raised a good little Italian boy, you learn how to cook everything. So
what's the biggest thing you learned from being a sous chef?
that chefs really are jerks.
Wait, so let me see if I get this straight. I'm not sure I follow the cybersecurity metaphor. I'm an expert in what I'm doing, therefore I'm a god, and my behavior is irrelevant to everything I do. Did I get that straight?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, they just, you know, they're an ass and they bark at people, and everybody has to jump when they say jump. And it's and in a lot of cases, you've got, you know, frankly, some brilliant cooks in the kitchen with you that have a lot to contribute. But you know, if the chef says to do it that way, you do it that way. But no, as a sous, you learn a lot about your timing, which is probably the hardest part about cooking. I mean, recipes and all are great, but the hardest part is telling you when to do what you want to do and how to get it plated at the right time so that it's kind of optimal for your guest, right? Because if you don't have it all cooked at the right time and you don't plate it all at the right time, you end up with something that just doesn't come out right. So I don't know if you can see in here, but this is the beautiful little kind of almost orange colored marinade you get with that smoked paprika, the oregano, and the salt and pepper. So I usually let that sit maybe like realistically like 30 minutes at a minimum. So I like about an hour for most. I know some people get real grumpy if you marinate chicken for longer than 30 minutes, but well, this is the way I like it. So too bad for them.
Mine's not as orange. Mine is more of a brown.
Oh yeah. How long has it been in there?
An hour and a half.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that should be good.
But I did not add the citrus until 20 minutes ago because the citrus is going to cook the meat.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you get chicken that just like disintegrates with like no substance. So I did not add.
Yeah, it'll fall apart.
Yep.
Yeah, I add the citrus. If I'm going to let it sit for a long time, I add the citrus typically about 20, 30 minutes at the longest.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to run to the grill real quick. My grill is right outside this door, so I can still hear and I can still talk because I got my headset on, but I'm going to be right over here taking care of some squash that I've got grilling real quick.
Chat with us about Southern California while you're at the grill.
SoCal right now is beautiful and sunny. And I got to say, the fruits and vegetables are very, very good and easy to find. Okay.
I live in Virginia. It's starting to get more toward winter. Not everything is in the store anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I do like the fall season, but the hardest part for me is losing all those awesome summer fruits and vegetables. You know, because as a cook, you want everything fresh as you can get it anyway, and that's like the time to do it all. And I wish I were better at canning, but I'm just not. Because I don't have the time. I should have picked it up during COVID. I just didn't get enough time to do it.
So how have you been occupying your time during COVID?
I have been doing a lot of cooking. That's been really, really good because, well, you know, my previous schedule was pretty much about probably 95% travel all the time, all over the world. So it's been quite nice to be able to be home long enough to actually go to the grocery store and pick out the week's worth of groceries versus just the weekend and you're home long enough to wash your clothes.
Yeah, I don't miss it. I also used to travel a lot, and that's been one of the fun things with the silver lining of all of this has been I don't travel as much. I get more time to kind of focus on me and being healthy, and that's where I started this cooking show. Was just, you know what, I love to cook. I've been doing it for years, and it kind of helped keep me sane.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So this is the butternut squash, and I cut them into little rings and of course core out the seeds. So you can see, God, that smells amazing. Now what I'm gonna do when that comes off, I just put it in some foil, let it rest, cover him with a towel, and it will still continue to cook a little bit like that. Okay, I'm gonna throw some peppers on and get my chicken going. So I've seen, Bryson, that you've been taking care of yourself quite well. I've seen the fitness challenges going on with many others. So tell me some about that. How has it changed your life?
I'm a disabled vet. I got hurt during the war, and I was discharged back in '04 when we were going back to Iraq, and I was really messed up. Being honest, it was both psychologically and physically. I got over the psychological stuff over a few years. The physical stuff took me a long time. And yoga was one of those things that helped kind of change my life because I really needed the sort of the holistic workout. And when, again, I was looking for things to do when this all went down. And one of the things I started to do was teach yoga. So Monday to Friday, I do a free online group yoga class. And the reason I do it is for me, because doing yoga by myself just seems really weird and I can't do it. But as long as I'm with a group of other folks, I'm fine. So 5 days a week, I'm teaching yoga. Wednesdays, we do a HIIT workout and then a happy hour together. And then the regularity of being able to work out that consistently has been fantastic for me.
And that's awesome. And really glad to hear. So you're feeling better, healthier mentally, physically.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. Again, I really hate to say that I found my little space of happiness during this really unfortunate time for so many. I mean, there are people who have had relatives die. There is so much challenge with employment, but in my own little way, in all of it, I have found a happy spot.
Well, that's good. I mean, I certainly feel awful for everybody that's going through tough times, but I feel a little bit of, I don't know, something like survivor's guilt myself.
Yeah.
And with things working out well for me is the same way. So
exactly, and it's hard for that because there's so many people around the world that are suffering. But I found out that I'm a dead ringer for Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments. So the Moses thing, I literally am I'm his doppelganger.
Cyber Moses.
I would not have known this because I've never grown a beard before like this, and I have embraced not cutting anything for 6-7 months. And once again, you find the humor in this. So let me know when I need to start heating up my pan because I don't have a grill for the chicken.
Okay, yeah, if you want to start your chicken, that's probably a good time because my squash is ready, it's resting. One of the tricks with this is you want to leave just enough time, and of course with cooking is basically timing. You want to leave enough time to let your chicken rest a little bit. So you want that chicken jus, you want the drippings basically to rest in that foil. So you let it sit for realistically maybe 5-7 minutes or so, longer if you can. I like about 5 to 10 minutes is fine. The chicken will rest, it will create its own sauce, and you use that basically to go over the top of the dish at the end. So we've got enough time to get the chicken cooked, get it resting, and I'm gonna start making my corn salsa, my esquites.
So how did you do the squash? What did you do?
I cut the skin off. It depends. Some people like to do the skin, after the fact, or you can just slide it off in some cases. But I cut it into rings for a butternut, and then I, core out the seeds where needed. And sorry, I'm working at the same time. You just get the little discs, and I like the flat discs of the butternut because you can use them as like a little serving spot for other things. So like in this case, the hollowed out ring of the butternut, I'm going to use to put a dollop of the esquite in. The esquite is with a, kind of offset on a little bit of grilled poblano. So you get the chance to kind of cut into all of that and get the stuff together at the same time.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool for the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, butternut is great in pretty much any way you want to cut butternut. Honestly, my favorite way is to just cut it up into little cubes and saute it in a pan with butter and go at it. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
Yeah, my favorite thing to make with butternut squash, and this is actually so it's kind of sneak preview, is there have been a bunch of people who've been like, well, Bryson, when are you going to do your own episode of sharing your cooking?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to do, I've kept 2 weeks open at the end of the year, and we're going to do 2 episodes. One, I'm going to do chef's favorite. So I'm going to bring back my favorite chef for an episode. And 2, I'll do my own episode. And what I've been leaning toward is one of my favorite dishes, particularly in the winter to do, is I make a butternut squash soup, and then I pair it with the world's greatest grilled cheese sandwich.
Wow.
So
okay, that sounds amazing.
Just slapping bread and cheese together? No. There is a way to make the world's greatest grilled cheese, and when you mix it with the fat and the saltiness of the grilled cheese with the sweetness and the depth of the butternut squash soup, it's transcendental.
Yeah.
So just talking about squash, that is sneak peek preview of what I'm thinking for the end of the year.
I think that's going to be fantastic. And I will probably end up making the same thing after I see the episode. I love a good grilled cheese. There's so many ways, so many breads, and so many cheeses. I mean,
there's only one bread. There's 3 cheeses you need to use. And then one of my tricks is I teach you how to make tempura.
Okay.
Are you intrigued?
I'm intrigued. So, but I'm definitely intrigued. Yeah. Now I'm wanting to know what the 3 cheeses are and what the only bread is.
I will give the bread away. Sourdough. Has to be sourdough.
Okay. Has to be sourdough.
Has to be sourdough. Sourdough is the best bread for grilled cheese.
All right.
So this is what I like, since my chicken thighs have skin on them, is I do this with a lot of things where because with the skin, there's more of the fat. And you just let it cook, and you just let it sit there, and you get that golden brown. And it's longer than you think you need to do. And it just keeps going, and it renders the fat out. And you end up with this really pretty golden brown.
Okay, I just broke up a bunch of cotija cheese in the bowl, just because it's something I can do right now while I've got other things going on. You can use pretty much any, standard crumbly Mexican cheese. I'm particularly fond of cotija.
So what are we doing with the avocado?
I like to put that in little tiny fine diced, a little bitty, like the size of your pinky nail or so. And I put that in the esquites, in the corn salsa.
Ah, all right.
I want it about the size of the corn. It adds the cotija and the avocado add a creaminess to it that make it so you don't have to add a lot of butter and other things. You just get a lot of really interesting flavors that are not, just standard dairy. Checking my avocado.
So your heritage is Italian, but you
Yeah.
have an affinity for Spanish food.
Yeah, I'm also with CCI, Centro de Ciberseguridad Industrial, out of Madrid in Spain. I'm the U.S. director there, U.S. coordinator, and my avocados aren't great, so I'm going to work with two of them to get what I want out of them. But so I've spent a lot of time in Spain, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the people and the cuisine and the culture. Um, and of course, I spent a lot of time in Central America and Mexico. I've got family in Mexico. So the whole Latin culture for me is just kind of I also have an interesting, I guess, just environmental, we'll call it environmental heritage. I spend a lot of time there and I love it. But yeah, I mean, I can make Italian food in my sleep, and I grew up doing that. And that's what I did when I was a sous chef. So to me, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's something that it's not as fun and exciting because I've already made it a million times. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my Italian dishes, as far as everyone tells me, they're fantastic, but I don't know, just like I say, it's not as exciting for me.
So why did you start Beer ISAC?
Well, I didn't start Beer Isaac, and I appreciate that, and it's I don't know, I love the attachment to it, and that's great. But it's all I did was give something a name that already existed. It just wasn't named something. I mean, it was called Hallway Con and many other things, but I was on stage at I want to say S4 16, and I was giving a talk, well, also known as bitching, because I do that about threat intelligence and information sharing. I mean, I've been part of quite a few information sharing organizations and stood them up, and I watched it at the government level when I was at the Department of Energy and when I was with one of the NERC regions. So I've seen all that part. I was ranting and ranting, and I was talking about how one of the most effective ways I've seen for information sharing so far has been with just the standard social circles, like Facebook and Twitter. Not necessarily Facebook and Twitter, but that many small rings of trust connected to other small rings of trust, and it seems to work fastest and frankly best in a lot of cases. Now, is it the only thing you should do? No, but it is often like the go-to solution for many situations while you're waiting for the high confidence reports to come out, whether it's from the federal space or from a vendor or whatever you want, right? It's always going to be, if I see something weird and I know Bryson's part of it, I'm going to pick up the phone or I'm going to email or Slack message or whatever. I'm going to reach out to you and say, are you seeing something weird? I'm seeing something weird. So I was basically joking, and I said, what we probably have the most information gets shared, with people that have, trust or friends over, coffee or beers. So what we really need is something like a Beer ISAC, and within I probably finished the talk in maybe 15 minutes, and by the time I got off stage, there was already a Twitter handle, and it took on a life of its own before I even got off stage. So I don't know if I created it. I think I just gave something that already existed a name, and if anything, I just get credit for coming up with a fun name for it. But it was really a joke.
Nobody does anything alone. That
No.
is the biggest lesson that I have learned is we're all a bunch of nerds who do all of our nerd thing, and we think we spend so much time being the smartest that we could be at what we do. At the end of the day, what allows that to scale and make it wonderful is that we do it with others.
Yeah, I like to say we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Mm-hmm. So I need to introduce you to a friend of mine from the Army, JC Vega. JC has the exact same mentality of you, that we need to build out all of these informal social relationships so that when the shit hits the fan, we are ready to go, because we already know who else is facing this or who else might face it next.
Yeah, just stuff like I watch these exercises that everybody is doing, and they're great. And every exercise comes out with the same result. They interview the people, and the people, the lessons learned. Of course, they're not going to get too detailed, for like an interview or a discussion afterward, but for obvious reasons. But the one thing that comes across, the most common thing they always say is, it was really good to get to know all these people, and now I know who to talk to, when this happens or when that happens. So most valuable part of that, of course, is, yeah, you've been to the exercise, you've exercised your muscle memory, you know what to do in a situation. But the reality is, you've actually met people that do those roles now, and you know how to talk to them, or you've met the person that you want to talk to in that circumstance from another agency or part of the business or whatever it might be. So I don't know. I absolutely agree. I think we should be doing, just call it what it is. A conference is really so you can go hang out with your friends and meet new people. And that's okay. And bosses should totally be okay with that. And they should fund that, because that is probably the best thing that could happen for that person and the organization both.
And yet here we are.
Yeah, I know. So I am just cutting the corn off the cob and mixing it into my little corn salsa esquites.
I'm already stealing your idea about putting the esquite between the butternut squash or the squash.
It's just
Really
such a fun way to present
very
it.
pretty little presentation. I mean, aesthetics are fun when it just comes naturally. And whenever you can take them, take them.
Well, they always tell you this when you're learning to, I guess, formal methods for cooking. I've only been to a few culinary, formal sessions, but you eat with your eyes first. So, when you're looking at it, it should look fantastic before you even put a bite in your mouth. Go for a little bit bigger bowl here. What you're hearing in the background is.
So how did you go from being a wonderful Italian son chef, sous chef, to now being one of the preeminent experts? And I said it for you, so you can just be humble about it. You fucking genius in cybersecurity.
I don't know. How do we all do we have our paths, it's just, I didn't
How'd you walk your path, man?
Didn't intend to. I was a telecom guy as a kid, and pole spikes and, ripping out KSUs back in the day and putting in DSUs, key switch units for digital switch units. So that's where I got my start, and got my hands on a computer, and off I went. I played around in telecom for a little while and ended up getting into networking and building data centers. And sorry, always washing my hands. But yeah, once I got into that, I got into all the things that go into building out data centers, especially on scale, the really big ones. And you learn that they're like a little city. So that's when I fell in love with all of the ICS elements. So as you build these out, you learn all the different environmentals. And
you got to translate.
Yeah, and that's where I started falling in love with ICS, because you really learn all those components there. And then I went to an electric utility back in '97, and that I was off to the races from there. I mean, I was out in the substations. I had dirty hard hat and boots, just like everybody else. And then spent a little time in the control center to learn what goes on there. And that, of course, is probably something that everybody should see, just because watching an electric, utility control center is kind of like watching the FAA. It's interesting to think about the fact that as people come home and ramp up their, televisions and washing machines and start cooking, that somewhere some generator has to respond, and somewhere in between, some generator out in the middle of nowhere and your home, some utility is balancing all the power, because it's like water in a pipe. Whatever you put in has to come out the other end. And if you draw too much, then, there's not enough coming in the other end. So there's somebody balancing all of that for you. And it's really an interesting thing to watch utility try to balance that, especially on a really big system. So I've learned all the power utility stuff, and then got into the regulatory side early on, just because I wanted to make sure I knew what the heck was coming. Because if our utility was going to get regulated, we should probably know, what to do. So I got on the drafting teams and was one of the first NERC-CIP people out there. Actually was the first NERC-CIP auditor for one of the NERC regions in the country.
What's NERC-CIP?
NERC-CIP, the National Electric Reliability, North American Electric Liability Council, it's now a corporation, and then CIP, Critical Infrastructure Protection. It's the US federal regulations for securing the power system. Well, I would say some of the power system. It's not, it doesn't cover all of it. Doesn't cover everything.
So what's the difference between NERC and FERC?
A letter? No.
I apologize to everybody. You're now getting a quick insight into the Hack the Plant podcast that I do, and which, by the way, Patrick is going to be released soon as an episode. But since you're here making delicious food, you're trapped. We're going to talk NERC and FERC.
Yeah, FERC is the federal agency that really has the authority over the power sector and the dams and the gas. Primarily, they started out with market regulatory authority. They picked up the cybersecurity and operations stuff in 2005 after the 2003 blackout. And then to keep some separation and so the industry could continue what they were doing. Prior to that, NERC was there. They were more like an international standards organization, and they've been around since like 1965. There was a big blackout up in the Northeast. And it was really about how to, frankly, balance your system, right? I mean, what we're going to do for protected relays and how we're going to, set frequency and how we're going to balance, even things like vegetation management practices, all that kind of really good utility operational stuff. They kind of all just got together and agreed on what to do. And there was a bunch of committees under what was then called NERC. Was just a reliability council of people that decided to do good things to keep the lights on. Since the industry had done that since '65, FERC thought it made sense to, I guess, let them continue that and then take it from kind of voluntary standards to this mandatory and enforceable stuff, which now makes those kind of international engineering and then early on cybersecurity standards just make them law, make it mandatory and enforceable. So then you get subject to audits, and then the whole NERC-CIP fun began. I'm going to check on my chicken real quick.
How did PPD 21, which is the presidential directive establishing the critical infrastructure in 2013, change all this?
Not much. I mean, I hate to be that way, but not much. It gave some more, I guess, strength behind what they were doing. Look at that, a newbie tearing my foil.
Well, it formalized that the Department of Energy, for example, is in charge of the electric grid.
It did, only under certain circumstances, though. So not for your standard day-to-day operations, but under emergency circumstances and that kind of thing. So it wasn't so much that it was, full authority. It was full authority under certain conditions and with some coordination, all of that. So the original one was, believe it or not, all the way back in the Clinton era, and it was PDD, Presidential Decision Directive 63, I believe. And that's what established kind of all the initial critical infrastructure security push. Back then, there was no DHS. We had the FBI and what was called the National Infrastructure Protection Center, or the NIPSI. So that was kind of where all of it got started. I grew out from there.
So what is happening in the kitchen right now on your side?
I am pulling my chicken off the grill. Turning the grill off, and then I pull the peppers off and slice them up. Well, slice the red pepper up anyway. So that is my chicken. Did not tear enough foil, so we're going to make a little hat. Cover that up and keep it on a cutting board because it actually holds heat better than that tile. How's your IPA?
I have graduated. I have now opened up a Rhino Chaser Pilsner.
Ah, I've watched a few episodes and I've seen that you've actually had both of these before.
Eventually, if you watch enough, it kind of like goes full circle and I've hit all the alcohols. but I really want to try that tequila.
It's fantastic tequila. Yeah, the whole Maestro del Bel line is good. I also like there's so many. Chula Paranda, Cava de Oro. There's a whole bunch of really good tequilas. And, you're not talking like your Jose Cuervo crap. This is stuff
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can easily pour, neat, no ice, not chilled in the freezer, just right
Sipping
into a
tequila.
glass.
Tequila
Yes.
you can drink, not tequila you have to like excuse.
Yeah, and you don't I guess you can shoot that if you want, but why? Just sip it. It's fantastic flavor.
Oh, same
And I've
with
also been
fruit
getting,
scotch.
yeah, and been getting into a lot of mezcals as well. But,
Mm.
okay, so I'm going to snip some of the little green onion ends in here.
No, I very much look forward to the day that we can all travel again, and I would love to spend an evening cooking with you and Carrie.
Yeah,
That's it. Like, we don't have to worry about tomorrow.
no,
We can just cook and drink, and I'll cook, you'll cook, we'll do it together. We'll both bring both of what our backgrounds, and it'll just be this amazing one-off unique meal.
oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm game. All right, let's get some travel going. Let's get a vaccine going. Get our smart people on it. Get our top people on this. A little bit.
I have friends working on Operation Warp Speed. So one of the biggest challenges we have with the vaccine is that the most likely vaccine is going to be this unique genetic technique called mRNA. And the problem that we have is if this proves successful, we do not currently have the refrigeration capabilities to do it at scale because the vaccine has to be kept at -80 degrees.
Wow. Is that to keep it from, I guess, respiring? I mean, what's the
proteins break down.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
No, come for the cooking
Okay.
show. Stay for national security and what's actually happening. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to take my red pepper that I roasted, nice and charred, and I like I'm like that. I like a little more char, and I leave the skin on. I'm gauche and I do things differently, but so now I'm just going to cut it up again the same way as the avocado into little tiny squares.
Yeah, so another substitute, I did not have red pepper, so I had yellow bell pepper.
Oh, yeah. That'll do.
I
Yeah.
charred that, and that's what my esquite had. So I'm snacking on just roasted butternut squash right now because it's just so
yeah.
raw.
Butternut squash is so good. I use it as a substitute for potatoes and all kinds of stuff. And if you haven't had like mashed butternut squash, like mashed potatoes, oh, it's heavenly.
I actually I made that last weekend. So
Fantastic.
my cousin just got engaged, and I made a roast chicken with a butternut squash mash and roasted. I think I made Brussels sprouts.
Now, how do you do your Brussels?
Oh, that's easy. Same way. Cut them in half, throw them down, let them burn.
Nice. Yep, I do the same. Cut them in half. I usually spray a little bit of olive oil on their faces as their open face, and then I cover them in spices and then put them face down and just let them burn.
So I don't use Brussels. I don't use olive oil because I'm concerned about olive oil can only take a certain temperature. And when I want to char, I don't think of olive oil, so I used a generic vegetable oil. But again, you talk about timing. This is the experience thing, right? Like you could give 100 people Brussels sprouts and oil and a pan and heat, and they would all make them differently. And you just learn over time what's the right balance of where do I get the right amount of char, because too much and you get that like bitter, carbon taste.
Yep.
The right amount of it's charred and the Brussels sprout actually cooks all the way through. It's just like a timing and heat thing. Like you can't teach this. You have to just do it and experience it and learn it yourself, and you just feel it.
So one of my tricks is I use pork belly. Make little tiny cubes out of the pork belly.
Yeah.
Render the fat from that. So I'm not using olive oil because it'll take a little bit better heat that way. And it's just fantastic flavor. I mean, it's pork belly fat in the pan. And then put the Brussels sprouts down, and then a layer just in a standard, like, I don't know, Teflon pan, skillet, whatever you got. And then I just put a layer of tinfoil on top to help them steam a little bit from the top side down as well. And that is perfect because if you just crack it, you can smell it and you can tell based on smell when they're done. I guess if you do it enough, you can tell based on smell when they're done, but you'll get it. Okay. How you feeling about plating this? Are you ready to go? You got your chicken done?
I am plated.
You're plated even. Damn, I'm behind. Okay.
That's the
So
challenge
that
when you
is-
do these. You have like all of these different ingredients. Oh, show that
Yeah.
again. What were we looking at?
That's the esquite.
Ah, see, this is my esquite.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's good color.
Yeah, I've got the color. I just don't have the pop. That's why the red peppers really work. Because you get
Yeah, the red
color
gives it that
contrast.
color.
I have yellow. You
Right.
can't tell that there's yellow peppers in it. But it's very good. I'm eating it. I'm very happy.
Perfect. Okay, let me make sure I can get this where I want on camera.
I made esquite a couple of weeks ago, in fact. Although instead of the cochita cheese, what did I do? I used something else. I want to say I did like the American version with sour cream.
Ah, okay.
I can hear the judgment. I got it.
No, it's not bad. It's actually really good. There's like some grilled corn with cream cheese and butter. It's just outstanding with little tiny diced jalapenos in it. God, it's off. It's just amazing.
Well, it's
if you're
like
really
a
good,
Philly
a little
cheesesteak,
sweet-
right? Like a Philly cheesesteak is with Cheese Whiz, which is not actual cheese. But like
No.
if you go with the sour cream, everything coats. And I've had authentic authentic esquite where you're like, on the side of the road.
Yes.
They're grilling it right there on their little grill, and you're like, there's your tent, there's your grill. And I mean, it wasn't the same, but it worked.
Okay, so I'm going for plating. And I didn't get a lot of jus out of this chicken. I didn't have enough skin on it, apparently. So, let's see if I got anything.
You need that skin, that juice for that au jus.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with one more. Like that. All right. Okay, and just for fun,
But I am digging this esquite. I am just like housing it directly.
oh yeah, usually after I have the meal and then I just go dig into the pan of esquite.
So I've never seen the avocado directly into it. I really do like that like buttery like base.
Yeah, it gives it that creaminess without having to use butter.
Yeah,
All right, and I'm gonna give that.
that's a first. I haven't tried that one before. Definitely recommend.
All right, finished product.
All
How
right,
easy that is to see.
get your face into it. We need to.
There we go.
So we do our joint one.
Perfect. Cheers.
Boom. Unicorn Chef's reminder, our charity tonight is Black Girls Code. Hashtag Unicorn Chef, please share with me and Patrick what you made. We would love to see it. Patrick, thank you so much.
Good to see you, man. Thanks, everyone.